One of my favorite times of the year as a sports fan is the week when the NFL schedule is released and going into the NFL draft, and also the first week of the actual regular season in the NFL. So, what I'm going to attempt to do in this video is I'm going to talk about my team, the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm going to talk about some of the needs that they have, and they have plenty of them, even though they were a 10-6 team last year and got to the playoffs. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about probably their four biggest needs that I believe that they have, and stuff that they need to address here in the first couple of days of the draft. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. Okay, one of my first needs that I think they need to address, at least in the first or second round, is middle linebacker. Jasper Brinkley went to the Arizona Cardinals in free agency, and quite honestly, you don't really think Tyrone McKenzie's the answer at middle linebacker come week one now, do you? I don't think so. But there are three prospects I think that are going to be available for the Vikings at pick 23 and or 25. And one of them is Manti out of Notre Dame. Yes, he has had not so much off the field issues, but with the fake girlfriend and the very slow time at the combine, and yeah, his pro day he got down to 4.71, which is okay for a linebacker, but his leadership skills have not been questioned at all. He had a great career at Notre Dame, and if the Vikings were to draft him, he'd feel right at home because Notre Dame has 6 Notre Dame alums on their team, so he would probably fit right in there. Another prospect would be Alec Ogletree out of Georgia. He may be the best middle linebacker in this class. However, he unlike Manti Te'o, he has had off the field issues. He's had a couple DUIs, so that might drop his stock a little bit. He may, well, these issues, he could have gone the first half of the first round, but I think if the Vikings were to be in a position to draft him, they'd probably get a steal. And as far as Kevin Minter out of LSU, he might, for the kind of scheme that the Vikings run, he might be the best prospect for them. Although I don't necessarily think he's a first rounder. He might end up going like early in the second. So I don't think the Vikings would take him. But hey, you never know. Another position I think they need to address in the first 2 rounds is defensive tackle. Mainly because Kevin Williams doesn't get any younger. And the guy next to him, Latroy Guion, I mean, he was pretty serviceable, but he's probably not a long-term answer. But then you got people like Sharif Floyd out of Florida, who's not going to be around when the Vikings pick, because I think he'll be gone in the first. He will probably be a top 5 pick, more than likely to number 3 to Oakland. But then you got Sheldon Richardson, who's another guy I don't think who will be there when the Vikings pick up number 23. He's out of Missouri. But then you look at some of the other guys that might be available when the Vikings make their first round selection. You got Sylvester Williams out of North Carolina, and I could really seeing them taking him in one of their 2 first round picks. Also, you got Jonathan Jenkins, who, if they don't take defensive tackles in the first round, this is somebody that they could probably get in the second round. I mean, he's kind of your old Pat Williams type. He's like 340 pounds and he's a big run stuffer. So, and if they decide to go even later, I mean, if they wait till like the 3rd round or something, they might be able to get a guy like Kawan Short out of Purdue. What I personally believe is their biggest need still is wide receiver. Yes, they signed Greg Jennings in free agency from the Green Bay Packers, but they traded Percy Harvin to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for their number 1 pick at number 25. So, and also they released Michael Jenkins, who ended up signing with New England. And as it would stand right now, your 2 starting wide receivers would be Greg Jennings and second-year player Jarius Wright, who came on later in the year after Harvin went on IR with that ankle injury. But you look at this draft for wide receivers, and there are a number of people that the Vikings might be able to go after. Although one of them is probably not Tavon Austin, because he will probably be gone in the top 10, but there have been a couple of reports that I think the Vikings may try to trade up to get him, but don't really see that happening. Just because, just given the Viking history, I've never known them to trade up in the first round. I guess to be fair, they did trade back up into the first round to take Harrison Smith last year, but as far as like some of the other wide receivers that may be available, you get a big wide receiver in Keenan Allen out of Cal. Then you got the pair of Tennessee wide receivers and Cordarrelle Patterson along with Justin Hunter. And I just have a hard time believing that the Vikings aren't going to spend one of their first round picks on a wide receiver. What I believe is another big need for the Vikings is cornerback. They let probably their best cornerback go in a salary cap move in Antoine Winfield. So really, your 2 starting corners right now are Chris Cook, who he is a big corner, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy all the time, and he's had off the field issues as well. Then they drafted Josh Robinson last year out of UCF, who did a pretty solid job last year. So, but after those 2, there's not really a lot of depth. So I could really see them spending an early round pick on a cornerback, such as like a Desmond Trufant. He may be there when the Vikings pick at 23. There's other people that could be in the second round, like a Jamar Taylor out of Boise State or a DJ Hayden out of Houston. Also, another guy to consider would be Bloody Ray Wilson out of Connecticut. So, you notice I didn't mention D. Milliner because there's no way he's going to be there when the Vikings pick. I personally think he's going to be gone in the top 10, if not the top 5. So. A couple other areas of need that the Vikings have that maybe not so much glaring needs as some of the other ones I have listed, but I would like to see them get a strong safety, because I don't really think Jamarcus Sanford is the answer, unless they decide that maybe they want to go with Robert Blanton, who they drafted last year out of Notre Dame. But I wouldn't mind seeing them draft somebody there, maybe in the mid rounds or something. But then outside linebacker, I think they don't have a lot of depth behind their starters, so I think if they were to draft at least one, that would probably really help their depth and that. But as far those are just some of the main needs I think the Vikings have, like what I've listed, and just some kind of minor needs that I just kind of listed with the strong safety and outside linebackers, but. Let me know what you thought, or what you think the Vikings need. Tell me who you think they're going to draft with their 2 picks in round number 1. And so let me go from there. And just go from there. And by Wednesday, I hope to have my top 10 mock draft up. And I should have like my whole entire first round mock draft in my description box. So, anyway, I will talk to you all later.